It's Friday, March 25. In the headlines, Merl Grove High School principal dismissed. A new school for Gully High. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service are investigating allegations of corrupt transfer of state lands. And in sports, England applying pressure on West Indies on day one of the final test in Grenada. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The Education Ministry will be constructing a new school for Gully High as part of the infrastructure program for schools. Portfolio Minister Favour Williams made the announcement while touring the school recently.
I was convinced before I came here that Gully needed to be dealt with. And when I asked about it, what I'm told is everybody agrees that there needs to be a new school here.
She advised the school and stakeholders that pre-construction activities will begin for the building of a new school this year. This will include transferring the title of 40 acres of land in Manchester Northwest from the National Land Agency to the Ministry of Education to house the new school building.
The approvals are there. Where we are right now, we're going to announce, hopefully in short order, a design competition.
The project will be undertaken as part of the ministry's School Infrastructure Development Program. PBCJ understands that the Board of Management of Merl Grove High School has voted to dismiss Principal Dr. Marjorie Fullerton after a recommendation by the school's Personnel Committee. Sources say the vote was taken at an emergency meeting that followed the Personnel Committee's submission of its report. The report says charges against the principal were proved at a hearing that has been underway since her September 10, 2021 suspension. Past students accused the board of taking sides in the dispute against Fullerton and have been urging them to reinstate her on grounds that she has been one of the best things to happen to Merl Grove High. Youth engagement in agriculture is critical to safeguarding the country's food security and increasing growth in the sector. So says Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Pernell Charles Jr. Marlon Samuels has more on the strategies being employed to attract more young people to farming.
Many young people migrate from rural areas, seeking work in major cities and offices. In Jamaica, employment in agriculture was reported at 15.69% in 2020. That's according to data from the World Bank. In 2020, the International Labour Organization noted that the percentage of people working in agriculture had fallen from 44% in 1991 to 26% in 2020. This was due in part to the growing use of technology in farming, as well as the lack of interest by young people to enter the agriculture profession. In the past, the average age of farmers in Jamaica was 60. A number of strategies have been devised to combat the aging problem and get more young people to engage in farming. The home gardening and fisheries initiatives undertaken by the Jamaica 4-H clubs are bearing fruit. The average age of Jamaican farmers is now under 40. Another initiative being championed by the Ministry of Agriculture is the Youth in Agriculture program. Started in 2017, the program offers unique opportunities for youngsters considering a career in farming. It has removed barriers to accessing land. It also provides young farmers with business counseling, financing, and technical support. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
The Department of Correctional Services, DCS, will resume non-contact visits to adult institutions on Monday. This follows the withdrawal of COVID-19 measures under the Disaster Risk Management Act last Friday. The DCS says it continues to maintain strict adherence to all COVID-19 protocols despite a reduction in cases of the virus. The Department of Correctional Services discontinued visits in 2020 to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in correctional centers. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the visit of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge to the Spanish Town Hospital on March 23 was a source of inspiration and positivity for the staff and patients of the facility. In an interview with JIS News after the event, Minister Tufton said that the royal visit presented an opportunity to celebrate frontline healthcare workers and to thank them for the sacrifices of the last 2 years. He noted this was extra special as the Spanish Town Hospital is generally not associated with celebrations. The minister said that the royal couple were well received and that they offered words of encouragement to the staff with whom they interacted. The visit of the Duke and Duchess to the hospital was one of the stops on the itinerary of their 3-day official visit to Jamaica from March 22 to March 24. As the Queen celebrates her 70th anniversary of reign, the Spanish Town Hospital, which was opened on June 18, 1952, will also be celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have arrived in the Bahamas after leaving Jamaica on what will be their last stop on the tour in celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Their plane touched down around 4:25 p.m. flying a Bahamian flag and royal standard. 27 minutes later, a smiling Duke and Duchess of Cambridge emerged. The royals were greeted by Anaya Mas, who presented the Duchess with flowers before the royal couple was greeted by Governor General His Excellency C.A. Smith and Mrs. Smith, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper and Mrs. Cooper, along with Attorney General Ryan Pinder and British High Commissioner to the Bahamas, Sarah Dixon. Next, we have the latest market updates in the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, March 24, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.20. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.37. The pound sterling traded for $205.11, and the euro sold for an average of $172.04. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Thursday's trading session. The JSE index declined by 1,679 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 40 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 1,212 points to close at over 300,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,001 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 107 stocks, of which 56 advanced, 31 declined, and 20 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, 1834 Investments Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Sagicor Real Estate X Fund Limited was the volume leader with over 191 million units, followed by Spur Tree Spices Jamaica Limited with over 37 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 6 million units. In regional stocks in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund was the volume leader with 100 shares, followed by Clicker Investment Fund with 35 shares being traded. The Barbados Stock Exchange saw Goddard Enterprises Limited as the sole security trading 91 shares. In Antigua, there is advice for citizens and residents from Prime Minister Gaston Brown as the Russia-Ukraine war increases inflationary pressures. Consumers are facing higher prices for some goods as the war compounds the global challenges already created by COVID-19.
Prices have been surging around the world, a significant challenge for consumers. In the United Kingdom, prices rose by 6.2% in February, their fastest level in 30 years. Meanwhile, in the world's largest economy, the United States, the Federal Reserve recently increased interest rates by 0.25% to help fight inflation. BBC News says as pandemic restrictions have eased around the world, firms have faced higher energy, shipping and wage costs, which they have passed on to consumers. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is now driving the price of oil and other commodities even higher, according to the BBC. Consumers in this country have been feeling the pinch of imported inflation. The Statistical Division says the cost of living in Antigua and Barbados rose by an average 2.9% for the 12 months ending January this year. The food index rose by 6.4% during that period, while for the 12 months up to December last year, it had risen 5.4%. Prime Minister and Finance Minister Honorable Gaston Brown has this advice for residents.
They have to buy smart. Eat smart, buy local, eat local. That will help to drive down the cost of living.
The government has announced that the recent increase in the cost of petrol at the pumps will be reviewed in April, at which time it could be lowered if the variables allow.
Some positive news, as in market data for oil prices have slipped, with some supply concerns easing, while the European Union remains split on whether to impose an oil embargo on Russia. Brent crude fell $1.29 or 1.1% to $117.74 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude slid $1.80 or 1.6% to $110.54 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In news from across the region, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge arrived on Thursday in the Bahamas. They were greeted by Bahamian officials before being transported to the office of the Prime Minister for a courtesy call. Jasmine Brown has the details.
The royal couple arrived here at the office of the Prime Minister shortly after 5 p.m., where they were quickly whisked inside. The convoy, led by an electric car carrying Prince William and his wife Kate, arrived at the delegation of Prime Minister Philip Davis and Mistress Davis, along with other members of cabinet, and were warmly greeted.
Prime Minister did say to me, "Come to Bahamas soon." So here we are.
It's about a year early, so first of all, let's like to welcome you.
The royals are on a week-long tour of the region, visiting Belize, Jamaica, and now the Bahamas for a series of engagements to celebrate Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee year, marking 70 years on the throne. The Davis administration has said the royal visit is the country's chance to showcase the vast talents of local artisans and creatives, as the Duke and Duchess visits New Providence, Abaco, and Grand Bahama. Additionally, they say the visit will shed light on areas such as education, healthcare, and climate change. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service are investigating allegations of senior public officials being involved in the corrupt transfer of state lands. Word from Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley as he responded to questions in the lower house on Wednesday after former Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries Clarence Rambrat reported instances of corruption in the transference of state lands. TTT Live has the story.
I can confirm that as early as November 2015, the then Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries spoke to me regarding possible corruption connected to state land development. I gave the Minister advice which he followed. Thereafter, I received from the Minister right up to the last week letters, reports and information regarding fraudulent dealings with state land and other aspects of potential criminal conduct.
The Prime Minister said many of the reports involve public officials, including very senior ones.
On each occasion, Madam Speaker, I did three things. I listened to what was said, read what was provided, and I instructed the Minister to report the matter to the Commissioner of Police on any other public authority. And I gave the Minister my assurance of full support for any action taken by him. At almost every cabinet meeting, Madam Speaker, I gave the Minister the fullest opportunity to discuss matters with the cabinet, and on many occasions he did.
In Barbados, the 18-year-old who was preparing to become the country's youngest member of the Senate is struggling to make sense of the arguments of independent senators who took his view of the proposed constitutional amendment intended to facilitate teenage representation in Parliament. More from Barbados today.
Youth activist and law student Khalil Koftiwala, who had been named by Prime Minister Mia Mottley for appointment as a government senator once the amendments had been passed, insisted that it is logical that persons allowed to vote in an election be able to serve in the country's highest decision-making bodies.
I accept entirely that there are people who believe that the age to sit in the House of Assembly or the Senate or both ought to be 21. My simple proposition in response to that is that there is no good reason why the two ages should be disparate, why they should be separate. So that if you believe that the age to sit in the Parliament ought to be 21, then that is a perfectly legitimate view to which you are entirely entitled, and I will defend your right to have that view. But that is a conversation for constitutional reform, because what that will mean is that if you believe that the age for the Parliament should be 21, then the necessary implication of that must be that the age to vote in Barbados be 21 also. That is a controversial conversation. That is a significant change, and that then will have to be the subject of a year-long constitutional review process.
In Antigua, the Health Ministry has postponed the return of weekend vaccinations at the American University of Antigua campus. ABS News has the details.
Due to some construction work taking place there, they have decided to postpone it to the 2nd of April 2022 at the same venue, same time, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
In the meantime, COVID-19 vaccines remain available at the country's main public health centers. A government-issued ID is required for everyone availing themselves of a jab. An adult must also accompany a minor getting vaccinated. Your original vaccination card is also required for people getting booster shots.
I would just like to encourage everyone, once you're eligible, once you're old enough to come out, get vaccinated, protect yourself, protect your family members.
Let's take a look at what's happening on the entertainment scene with our ECAP reporter, Alicia Steele.
This week's entertainment recap of enough buzzy news like them fly the gate for entertainment sector, 2022 carnival discussion, 6 years for Jacure, new music and lots more.
ECAP is aired weekly on PBCJ at 8:30 p.m. on Saturdays. If you miss it, you can watch it on all our social media platforms as well. In sports, Jamaica drew 1-1 with El Salvador in their CONCACAF World Cup qualifying game on Thursday at the National Stadium. Eric Zalvelita gave the visitors the lead in the 21st minute, while Andre Gray got Jamaica's equalizer in the 72nd minute. Jamaica is still to win a World Cup qualifying game at home in this campaign with 3 draws and 3 defeats. Jamaica will face Canada on March 27 before closing its campaign against Honduras on March 30. Despite an improved bowling effort from West Indies, England fought back to pass the 200 mark on day 1 of the 3rd and decisive Apex test in Grenada on Thursday. Sent into bat, England were struggling on 114 for 9 at one stage, but a spirited last wicket partnership guided England to 204 all out at the close of play. Jayden Seals claimed 3 wickets, while 2 apiece went to Kyle Mayers and Kemar Roach and Ansari Joseph. West Indies women were left frustrated in Wellington Thursday night after rain forced a no result in their high-stakes must-win ICC World Cup group game against South Africa. Just 10 overs were possible due to heavy rains at the Basin Reserve. South Africa had slumped to 22 for 4 at one stage, recovered to reach 61 for 4 when play was called off. Chanel Henry took 3 for 19, both teams picked up a point each, which means South Africa joins Australia as early semi-finalists with 9 points from 6 matches. We end today's newscast with a quick weather report. The Met Office says there's a high-pressure ridge across Jamaica. The ridge and a low-level jet stream are expected to remain across the island until Saturday, when a prefrontal trough moves within the vicinity of the island. Windy conditions are expected to persist until then, especially across the south coast. A low-level jet stream is a narrow band of fast-flowing wind in the lower levels of the atmosphere. This afternoon, we can expect isolated showers mainly across western parishes, otherwise partly cloudy conditions are forecast. Windy conditions are forecast across sections of southern parishes. Tonight should be fair. And with that, we call an end to today's newscast. Pleasant viewing.